Hello everybody and welcome to our muddy Creek Campfire. Tonight we're on a portion of the original trail that was only used for a short time, and then they rerouted the trail. Wendy's going to share some of the history and show some of the photos of the significance right here where we're at. We've got two of our grandkids with us tonight, so if you hear them in the background, White and Raisha. So go ahead, Wendy, let us.
Okay, like Doug said, this was only used by the very first group that came through with Brigham Young, the Vanguard Company. So if your ancestors came with that first group, this would have been where they came down through. And that's coming down through the hill. And then down here we have some wagon ruts in the rock. They weren't very deep because, as we said, that was the only first group that came through. So there weren't a lot of wagons to dig them very deeply. So there's just a few here as you come down through here. And they got over here to this spot, and quite a few of them wrote about it in their journal. So I was going to read you some journal entries from this spot right here. This first one is William Clayton. On arriving at the west side of the ridge, 2.5 miles from the last mentioned spring, we found a very steep, rough place to descend and found it necessary to halt and fix the road. About halfway down there is a place over huge rocks, leaving barely enough room for a wagon to get down, but by labor it was soon made passable. A little farther, the brethren had to dig a place considerably to make a pass between the mountains. President Young and Kimball labored hard with a number of others, and in about a half an hour made a good road. So this here would have been all solid like that. Hoyt, run down there and show them how steep that is. Run down in that hole. And they build it up here so that the wagons could make it down over here. I still wouldn't want to go down here in a wagon, but that's kind of how this whole thing looked before they filled this in. So I'll just read you another one. The descent on the western side of which is abrupt and precipitous and is covered with gnarled and stunted cedars, twisted by the winds into many fantastic shapes. Descending with some difficulty the steep mountainside, we found ourselves in a narrow hollow. And that was Edwin Bryant, who also came through there. And then Thomas Bullock. We again had to cut away part of the hill to descend. President Young and Elder Kimball assisted the brethren. They made the road wide enough for the wagons to pass, locked wheels, and descended into a beautiful valley with good grass. Cedar trees were growing on the hills. So now we're going to take you over to Dibble.
I get a blessing from the Lord up above. Gave him a beautiful woman to love, place to live and some land to farm, 2 good legs and 2 good arms. The devil came a-sneaking around, decided he would do a little evil to right. Figured he would hit old Doc where it hurt, filled up all of Ike's wells with dirt. And when Ike went out for his morning drink, a dipper full of dirt and his heart did sink. He knew it was the devil, so he said with a grin, God blessed me once and he can do it again. Blessed me once and he can do it again. So when the rains don't fall and the crops all fail, the cows ain't putting any milk in the pail, they sit around and wait for a check in the mail. Just pick up the shovel and dig another well. Pick up the shovel and dig another well. Now me and old Ike got a lot in common. The Lord blessed me with a beautiful woman, gave me a job and he gave me a home, gave me a well to call my home. 'cause God blessed me once and he can do it again. Blessed me once and he can do it again. When the rains don't fall and the crops all fail, cows ain't putting any milk in the pail. Don't sit around and wait for the check in the mail. Just pick up the shovel.
Grandma, I can see your car
Pick
from
up
this
the
way.
shovel.
See?
Dig another well. Well, the good book says I finally won. Pick up the shovel. Dig another well. The devil got tired and left him alone. Pick up the shovel and dig another well. I know someday I'm gonna win too. Pick up the shovel and dig another well. Good book tells me what to do. Pick up the shovel and dig another well. Pick up the shovel and dig another well. Pick up the shovel and dig another well.
Okay, here we are over at Philo Rock or Philo Dibble. This is the inscription that's on the rock. Philo Dibble Jr., November the 24th, 1857. And at this point in time, the pioneers had made it into the valley in Utah, and they were doing pretty well, and they heard that Johnston's army was coming after them. So they picked about 50 of the 50 men to come back and stop them. They didn't want them taking everything that they had again. And so they, Lot Smith was the leader, and there was about 50 of them that came back. And they burned Fort Bridger and Fort Supply. And then they were told to find the wagons and to actually burn the wagons and run off the animals so they wouldn't have any. So they found them, and they circled around them at night when they were around their fire, and they took all of their guns from them, and they piled all the guns up in a great big pile, and they were going to burn them. When somebody come running in with a message from Colonel Alexander of the U.S. Army. So they'd already been captured, but Lot Smith said, go ahead and read it so everybody can hear. And it stated that all men should not sleep. They were to keep guard over their wagons because there were Mormons in the region. And even though they had already caught him, he brought the message into him. So he grabbed a torch and he burned them. Burned all the wagons. And then the next day they met up with another one. That one was 51 wagons. The next one had 25. And he disarmed all of them, and they found Captain Simpson. And he was quite embarrassed that he was going to get caught and would be out there starving. So he talked him into letting him have 2 wagons. And then when they were loading, it was Captain Lot Smith was reloading his gun after firing it to bring his men in, and they were gathering all up when his gun went off, and it struck Orson Arnold's thigh, breaking the bone terribly. And then there was a ball that struck Philo Dibble Jr. under the ear and went through Samuel Bateman's hat and pulled his hair. So when he signed his name in the rock right here, they were actually on the way back to Salt Lake to get him to a doctor. And they were hiding out here, of course, because we told you the main trail was that other direction now. So, but I just wanted to tell you a little bit about his father, Philo Dibble. And I have his own words here. He was shot in the Battle of the Big Blue. He was struck in the bowels. He bled so much inwardly that his body was being filled with blood. Philo said, I was then examined by a surgeon who said that he had seen a great many men wounded, but never saw one wounded as I was that ever lived. He pronounced me a dead man. David Whitmer, however, sent me word that I should not live I should live and not die, but I could see no possible chance to recover. After the surgeons had left me, Brother Newell Knight came to see me and sat down on the side of my bed. He laid his right hand on my head, but never spoke. I felt the Spirit resting upon me at the crown of my head before his hand touched me, and I knew immediately that I was going to be healed. It seemed to form like a ring under the skin, and it followed down my body. When the ring came to the wound, another ring formed around the first bullet hole, and also the second and third. Then a ring formed on each shoulder and each hip, and followed down to the ends of my fingers and toes, and left me completely.
Grandma, now can I do it?
I immediately arose and discharged 3 quarts of blood or more with some pieces of clothes that had been driven into my body by the bullets. I then dressed myself, and from that time not a drop of blood came from me, and I never afterwards felt the slightest pain or inconvenience from my wounds, except that I was somewhat weak from the loss of blood. So this was Philo Dibble Jr.'s father who had done that. So this is kind of a neat place. It's kind of a neat amphitheater here. A lot of them finish up here to do their final testimony meetings or stories that they close with here, their last day. So we're going to let Doug sing you a couple more songs.
We're watching.
I know it's a drag, I know it's a grind. Know that $1 ain't worth a dime. Trying to keep up with the Joneses at the end of the line. I know you get tired, I know you get down. I know you get sick in the soul-sucking town. But let's make a little lemonade of lemons is all we've got. 'Cause I'm stuck on you, you're stuck on me. I never gotta wonder where my honey is. Ain't saving all my sugar for Saturday night. 'Cause 7 days a week I got an appetite. Sunsets like a tangerine. Let's find a road we've never seen. Don't waste another mile or a minute not kissing me. Life is short, make it sweet. Open sky, glimpse of heaven. Take the top off of CJ7. Let the Surfside Santa Ana wind mess up your head. And let the windshield frame the ocean. Radio keep coast to coast. If we don't get where we're going, baby, I don't care. Already there. 'Cause I'm stuck on you, you're stuck on me. I never gotta wonder where my honey be. Ain't saving all my sugar for Saturday night. 'Cause 7 days a week I got an appetite. Sunsets like a tangerine. Let's find a road we've never seen. Don't waste another mile or a minute not kissing me. Life is short, make it sweet. The days will be long, but the years will fly right by. We'll never be as young as we are tonight. Baby, ain't that right? Stuck on you, you're stuck on me. I never gotta wonder where my honey be. Ain't saving all my sugar for Saturday night. 7 days a week I got an appetite. Sunsets like a tangerine. Let's find a road we've never seen. Don't waste another mile or a minute not kissing me. Life is short, make it sweet. Life is short, make it sweet.
Will be super quiet. Grandma, I hear the flame. Can we see it?
Not right now. We're kind of excited. We have spotted about 4 lizards and caught one, so we're struggling here, trying to keep quiet. Grandpa's gonna do one more, okay? Okay.
There's a little boy out in the
Grandma, why
driveway,
did fall off?
basketball in hand. Says, Daddy, can we play a little one-on-one? We pat him on the back and say, not now, son, I'm a busy man.
Why does he have to do this?
My sister's out on the sidewalk, setting up a lemonade stand. Hey, Daddy, don't you want to buy a glass for me? Say, maybe later, can't you see I'm a busy man? Gotta go, gotta run, hit it hard and get it done. Everyone can see you're going far. Got responsibilities, crazy schedule that you keep. When you say that time's a wasting, you don't know how right you are. Busy man. There's a woman in the bedroom crying, saying, I thought we had plans. Honey, I'm sorry, we'll make it up when the job slows down and I'm not such a busy man.
Grandma?
Gotta go, gotta run, hit it hard and get it done. Everyone can see you're going far. Got responsibilities, crazy schedule that you keep. When you say that time's a wasting, you don't know how right you are. Busy man. Have you ever seen a headstone with these words? If only I had spent more time at work. There's a call one day from the office. They need you down in Birmingham. This ain't no way the weekend's mine. Plans with the kids and a date with my wife. I'm a busy man. Gotta go, gotta run. Take a break and have some fun. Those who love you most say you come first. Got some new priorities in that schedule that you keep. When you say that time's a wasting, now you know how right you are. Busy man.
Grandma, keep doing that.
Busy man.
Busy man. Grandma, I just do the same thing what he sings. Grandpa, I just sing the same thing than you. I just say whatever thing to say, like I was doing great. God.
You were doing great. Okay, we're going to tell you a few butterfly stories. I read my poem about the butterflies a few of our videos back, so I'm just going to briefly tell you about that one, and then so you kind of know where we're coming from. One day over here, one of the moths came to me and she said, Wendy, are the butterflies unusual this year? And I said, you know, I've never seen them this thick ever. And she kind of started to cry. And I said, what's up? She said, well, before we came, there was a young man who had cancer, and he wanted to come with us really bad. But the closer it came to leaving, the more he realized that he wasn't going to be able to come. And so he decided that he wanted to have some kind of sign or token so the youth would know that he was here with them. And so the leaders went over and visited with him, and he decided on the butterfly. And about 2 weeks before they came, this young man passed away. And those butterflies traveled with those kids all 4 days. They were on their fingers and bonnets and shoulders, and they just traveled right with them. It was a really cool experience for them to have. Then I was doing another group, and this lady come up and she says, Wendy, you must have tons of stories. I know you must have tons of stories. I want you to tell me one. And we ended up here again. And so I told her the butterfly story. And she said, she started to cry again. And I said, what's the matter? And she said, when we were walking, we had this butterfly land on my daughter's skirt. My other daughter had passed away in March, but this butterfly landed on my daughter that's with us, and it climbed up the side of her dress and up to her shoulder and touched her on the cheek. And she said, we wanted to believe that that was my daughter telling us that she was okay. And she said, now that you told me that story, above all the other stories you could have told me, I know that that's what was happening. I had one young lady here, we were doing a fireside, and we were talking to them. I shared the butterfly story again, and afterwards she came up to me and she said, Wendy, I didn't have an ancestor that came across. So she said, I actually Googled an ancestor, somebody to come with, and I didn't have anything in common with her. I didn't know how to connect with her. And she took her bonnet off and she showed it to me, and she had embroidered butterflies all along the top of the bonnet, and the lady's name on the back of her bonnet. She had been touched by the Spirit, and also her stake president at that time asked if anybody had an answer to one of their questions, and her hand went up, and she said, I'm going on a mission. I'm going to serve the Lord, and I didn't know that before, but now I do, and I'm going to go. I had a lady down here that was working in the food committee, and she happened to hear the butterfly story. She came up here with us. When we went back down, she came up to me and she said, you know, before everybody came, there was this beautiful butterfly, and when I saw your pictures, she says, it was the same kind, but it flew through her food tent and landed on the trailer, and she had said, come back here. And the butterfly had come back and flown around the food and stuff before it had left. She said, we lost a son 6 years to the day with suicide. And you have just put the icing on the cake for me. She says, we've had lots of experiences with butterflies since he has passed away. And so I kind of got to thinking, Jesus, kind of unusual for this many butterfly stories to come. And so I Googled butterfly and death, and it's amazing how many people have been touched by the butterfly. We had one lady that had told me she'd been in the hospital, and there was a butterfly outside her window that comforted her. We had one lady tell me that during prayer, she had a butterfly land on her finger. So she opened her eyes and looked at it, and she nudged her daughter who was next to her so she could see the butterfly. And she said that the daughter told her after the prayer that she was covered in butterflies through that whole prayer. And they felt like that was just for her and her daughter to see and understand, because it was during the prayer. But she felt as though it was the mothers and daughters having to pull those hand carts by themselves. We had one lady who was touched by a butterfly. She had a young grandson who was helping his mother do laundry. And they were done, and they went in the other room, and he found another sock, and he went to put it back in the washing machine, and had fallen in head first and had drowned. And she had a butterfly right on her skirt with her. So we've just had a lot of neat experiences. One man just told me he just saw a whole flock of them and was blessed by them. We've had them fly through their testimony meetings. And so we kind of nicknamed this place the Butterfly Trail, because we've seen so many, and so many have touched our lives. So we'll have Doug do one more song.
The sun is sinking in the west. The cattle go down to the stream. The red wing settles in the west. It's time for a cowboy to dream. Purple light in the canyon, that's where I long to be, with my three good companions, just my rifle, pony, and me. Gonna hang my sombrero on the limb of a tree, coming home, sweetheart darling, just my rifle, pony, just my rifle, pony. Whippoorwill in the willow sings a sweet melody, riding to Amarillo, just my rifle, pony, and me. No more cows to be roped, no more strays will I see round the bend. She'll be waiting for my rifle, pony, for my rifle, my pony, me. Well, thanks for being with us. This is the last time we're going to meet on the trail. We're going to
Okay, now
do
can
one
I
video
walk?
from Piedmont and share some history and some stories from there next week. So hope you have a good week.
And keep your campfire burning. We'll be back.